Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode. I am so excited that you are here. I want to help you get on your way to the best career for you, whatever that means. And so I'm going to spend a couple of episodes helping you guys with problems that come up the most. In my membership in the Quitter Club, I help hundreds of people figure out what it is they want in their life, what they want in their career, and how to go after it. And as you can probably guess, the same issues come up over and over again. And so I figured what better thing to bring to the podcast than to help you with some of the most common issues, because I'm sure a lot of you suffer from the same things. And so over the next couple of episodes, I will be addressing some major issues that a lot of people suffer from. And so if it applies to you, hopefully you'll see that you're not alone and that there are some solutions to it. And if you want more help with that, you can always join the Quitter Club. You can go to lessonsfromaquitter.com/Quitter Club to join there. Okay. One of the things that I hear the most, and there's two different camps. It's either help, like I have way too many passions. I have so many things I could pursue. There's so many things I love. There's no way I can narrow it down. I kind of jump all over the place. I start something for a little bit and then I move on to something else. And I don't know what the thing is, what the one thing is that I should go after, what the next chapter should be. That's usually one camp. The other camp is help. I have no idea what I even like. I don't even think I'm passionate about anything. Obviously, I would never want to work if I didn't have to. And so I can't answer these questions of like what my dream job would be. I really don't think I have anything that I would want to pursue. How do I kind of get in touch with that? I used to fall into the latter camp when I left my job as a lawyer. I really thought I have no other skills and or interests. Like there's just nothing else I want to do. I'd spent so much time trying to be a lawyer and getting to that milestone that I really lost touch of anything else that I wanted. And in another episode, I'm going to help those people, okay? But in today's episode, I want to help the people that have too many passions, that have too many things that they are interested in, and when they feel kind of all over the place because their brain is taking them on all these different tangents. So if that's you, then today's episode will hopefully be helpful in thinking about it in a different way. The first thing that I want you to know is that is super normal. That is actually how most people are. Even if you think you fall in the other camp, human beings in general are curious animals. Our brains never stop growing. We always want growth. If you look at children, like you'll never find a child that's not curious. It's not like an innate thing within you that you just don't have any interests. It's that you were raised in a society that sort of beats it out of you, right? You're forced to suppress anything that you want or anything that you need or anything that you're curious about in order to get, to do the adult thing, in order to work and climb the corporate ladder and, handle all of your million responsibilities. But it's there. And so for a lot of us that it is up at the surface, maybe the way that your brain works is that there's just tons of things you've always been curious about. It's a normal thing. You should be curious about a lot of stuff. Like your brain, you aren't a, singular kind of, you're a multifaceted person is what I'm trying to say. You have multi dimensions. There's going to be a lot of things in a lot of different areas that should be of interest to you. And so I just want you to know that like just because society has pigeonholed us into one thing, just because society has told us that like we should be pigeonholed, like you are X, you are a lawyer, you are a doctor, this is what you decided to focus on. That doesn't mean that's all you are. And that doesn't mean that's the only thing that you should find interesting. And it doesn't mean that you can't naturally have these desires to want to discover and explore and experiment and look at a lot of different various kind of areas. And so I just want to start with that because I think that a lot of people that come to me think that it's a problem. They categorize themselves in this way of like, oh, I'm flighty or I never stick to things. And I want you to just know that like that's the way your brain should be working. Not that you can't stick to things, but that there are just a million different things where you're directions in which your brain could go. And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. It's just that within, again, our society, it may not, if you want to play by those rules and you want to be successful or an expert or something in one thing, it can kind of lead you off that path. And so we'll talk about how you can kind of work with it, but I just want you to know at the outset that like there's nothing wrong with that. There is no problem here, right? And in fact, I think that it can be a huge benefit. It can be a huge asset or strength for you. I think a lot of times people have a lot of shame that, again, I am, the jack of all trades and master of none, as if that's a bad thing. And I think that there's too much emphasis in our society on being quote unquote an expert. Now, I understand that there's a need maybe for experts and that there's a need within corporate America, within, our work, where somebody can be really skilled in one area and then that can, reap rewards like jobs and higher pay and benefits. So it's not to say that there's anything wrong with being an expert, and I think we do need those. I also just think that we don't need all one type of people. We don't need everybody to be an expert in anything. We actually really do need people that are jacks of all trades, because we need people who are resourceful, who can be put in a lot of different roles and figure it out, who are creative, who can think about solutions in different ways, who can kind of be able to put themselves and mold themselves for whatever is needed. And that's what I see when someone tells me that. I see someone that is extremely resourceful, that is extremely creative, that is extremely flexible in how they allow not only themselves to show up, but they allow their brain to be used, right? Like in certain scenarios, they might use certain parts, and others, they're comfortable changing, which is not a lot of us. A lot of people don't feel like that. And so I think if that is you, that is a huge skill to have. And I want you to look at that in that way, because I think a lot of times we hold ourselves back, or we think there's something wrong with us, or we think that this is something that needs to change or be stamped out of ourselves. We try to get ourselves to no, I need to focus on one thing and I need to become an expert in it. And I just want you to question, is that really true? Do I really need that, right? What if the way that my brain is set up, the way that maybe all of these interests that I have, what if that is a strength? What if that is something that is valuable? And how could I use that in order to further whatever career goals I have, right? And I think that is sort of the crux of this, is that you have to realize where you're providing value. You have to realize what is the value that I maybe bring to the team, or that I bring to this job, or that I bring to this career, because I have maybe my hand in a bunch of different things, because I have perspectives from other arenas. How is that a strength? Because I promise you it is a strength. And if you don't see it, if you're constantly beating yourself up as no, I have too many, I'm just flighty, or I'm just, fill in the blank, then you're going to naturally hold yourself back. You're going to think that you're not qualified for things. You're not going to go after different careers or promotions or whatnot, because you think that having this type of a brain or this type of a tendency is somehow a hindrance. And I really want you to see that it does provide value. You just have to figure out, what is the value that I provide within this role, within this career, right? How do the way that my brain naturally works and its interest in all these things, or lots of different things, how can it be a value add to this company? And I want you to answer that question. Don't just think about it. And I want you to come up with as many answers as you can. Not just one. I want you to really think about how it can help to maybe have some people that are experts and go dive deep, and then other people who can really float between different roles and fill in different things that are needed, and be able to not be as rigid, and be able to not be as set in their ways, and be able to want to learn and be curious and be excited to learn something new. How could that be an asset to any company? And I promise you that it can. The other thing that I want you to really think about, if this is you, is when we start there and we get to the acceptance of there is nothing wrong here. There's nothing wrong with me. It's not some moral failing. It's not some lack that other people have that somehow makes them better and I'm not good enough. None of that is the case. But how do I want to kind of rein this in while I am focusing on my career, or while I want to build my next career? And this is the part where you do need to kind of have a little bit more discipline. And what I want you to really think about with this is that you can do a lot of things, but you can't do everything at the same time. You can have everything. You may not have it at the same time. And so I want you to really understand how long you have to live. I know that we get all these messages of life is short, and it is. And it's obviously perspective and how you're looking at it. And I get that for a lot of us, when we have a lot of passions, we think that time is running out and I'm never going to get to all this stuff. But I want you to slow down a little bit. And I want you to just expand out and think of it from a 10,000 foot view, and I want you to look at your life. And I want you to think about how many years do you have left to work? So if you're, 30s or 40s, let's say, I'm just going to pick that because that's where I'm at. I'm in my early 40s. I have 30 more years to work, okay? And this multi-passionate thing, it doesn't even have to just apply to work, by the way. This could be just for hobbies and stuff. And if I'm going to think of it in that sense, then, I have 40, 50 more years of hopefully being able to engage in the things that I love. And those things are going to change, and that's okay. But when I look at it like that, and I look at like, I love a lot of things, and I don't have to do everything right now. There isn't this rush. Our society has programmed us to believe that there's a rush, that we need to sprint as fast as we can, and we need to get to some finish line, and that's where we get to be happy, right? That's where we get to kick up our feet. But that just doesn't exist. There never is. You're going to work on something, you're going to have accomplishments, you're going to make money, you're going to do the things, and then you're going to move the goalposts. You're just going to go on to the next thing and the next thing. And even if you create a dream career or a dream life, you're going to have that and it's going to be wonderful. And then you're going to want something else because your brain is made to grow. Your brain is made to not be complacent, to not simply be content with what it has all the time, but to want more in order to grow. That is what has allowed humans to flourish in the way that we have, is what it has allowed us to want to discover new things instead of being like, this is pretty good enough, right? And I know, and this is a discussion for another day of like, how do you really sit with the gratitude of the things that you have and be happy with it and still want to strive for more and better. And I can definitely do a podcast episode on that. But for today, I just want you to understand that like, there is no there, and there is no rush. There's no rush that like I have to do everything that I want to do right now. I could do a career for 5-10 years and then change again, right? I can work on something and be super passionate about it. And even if I'm super passionate about it, at some point that chapter might end. I might grow and start loving other things. My priorities might shift. My values might shift. I might develop new beliefs. And so it was great for a while, and now I'm ready to grow in a different way. And if you can look at your life like that, and you can look at like, there is a lot of time for me to explore a lot of different things, but I can't do it all at once, because you are correct that like in the moment, you live in a finite world. There's a limited amount of time and energy that you have. And so you can't do everything all the time. It's just not possible. I wish it was. And so you would hate your life if you tried, if you're constantly trying to run on this hamster wheel. And so you have to really like learn how to sit with the discomfort of like, this might not be something I can do right now, but I can put it on the back burner. I have a journal where I write down all of the ideas I have of things that I want to explore or things that interest me. And I keep this journal because I want to remember these things. And I know that there's a lot of things that I can't work on right now. My life is really busy with young children, with the business that I'm building right now, with my husband and my family, with a lot of other things. And it's great and it's full and it's wonderful. And my brain is always coming up with new ideas of things I could try and things I could pursue and things I could create and things I could make. And some of these things in the journal will never come to pass. Either I'll get over it. By the time I look back at it, I look at some things from a couple years ago and I'm like, I don't really want to do that anymore. Or it's like, technology changes, somebody else creates something that fulfills that need. It doesn't really need to be made anymore. And I'm like, okay, now I move on to something else. But when I have this journal, and you could create something like that for yourself, it sort of relaxes my anxiety of like, there's time to go back to this and try something else. There's so much, I feel like, liberation in knowing that like you can keep trying new things over and over again. And you have so much time to try those things. And so you don't have to pack it all in right now. And so if you do have a lot of passions, the question becomes like, what do you want to work on right now? And I want to say this too, just as a caveat, this does not have to be just about careers. So for a lot of you, if you have a lot of passions, and I would suggest like, journaling on it, writing them all down, kind of getting an understanding, I want you to really think about like what part of that makes me the most happy, right? And it may be things that you can implement into your life as hobbies, as, things that you do on the side, things that you maybe dabble in here and there, but it's not going to be the main focus, right? So maybe if I have a need to be creative right now, maybe with my business, I may not have as much time to be creative. Okay, maybe I can create something else on the side. Maybe there's something on the weekends or nights that I want to find time for myself to paint or, whatever it might be, go to dance classes or whatnot. You can start figuring out like there's a need within me. Like I want to build this business, but I also want to be creative, but I also want to, learn another language or whatnot. Not all of it has to be my career. Not all of it I don't have to make a life out of all of it. I can decide like these are just things that I would like in my life. And I feel like actually the more we do that, the richer your life becomes. When like your career isn't the sole focus of every source of happiness for you, when you're not putting that pressure on it to be, right? When it's not like I need to find the career that's going to make me the happiest all day, every day, which is impossible. It becomes easier to even deal with the stress of the career. It's like, okay, this has its own place and I get to really delve into the passions that I have in these other places, in these other things that I'm doing. And so I would look at it that way as well. And I think that the last thing that I will say on this is that while you have to figure out like what you're going to focus on and what you're going to work through, I think that a decision that you have to make is what is the next thing I'm going to focus on. And I think this is where a lot of people get hung up because we are so focused on what is the right next thing for me to pick. And unfortunately, there is no right next decision. There is no decision that like this is the best thing for you to pick. There's a lot of factors that will obviously go into it, like, what might take less work or you need less skills to get into, or you can be up and running faster. What is more likely to make, if you're going to start a business, let's say like to be successful, or if you're going to get a job, like how much does it pay? You can look at a lot of reasons of why you want something or why one decision is going to be better than the other. But I want you to disabuse yourself of this idea that there is one right next decision. I think for so many of you, the reason you stay stuck and spinning for so long is that you think there should be one thing that's like this, like, the clouds are going to part and the answer is going to come to you. And it's like, this is your right next decision that you're going to do for the rest of your life and you're going to be passionate about the whole time. That doesn't exist. Even something that you're super passionate about, you might do for 5 years or 10 years and be like, you know what, kind of over it. It's done at this point, and that's okay. It's okay that it changes. And so when you're trying to make this decision, you have to take the pressure off of like, what is the right decision for me to make? And really think about like, what is the next thing I want to explore? What is the thing I want to experiment with? What is the thing that lights me up the most right now? Right? What is the thing that I maybe, like I said, can make the most money from or can get into, I have network kind of connections or whatnot. That can be enough reason for that to be the right decision for you. Not because there is some like preordained, like there's going to be some conclusion you get from some higher being that's like, this is the best path for you. No one's going to give you that. Nobody can. And likely when you do have a lot of passions, you have to understand that there is going to be some loss and some pain when you cut off other decisions, right? So it's like if I'm looking at 4 or 5 different potential career paths I could go into or different businesses I could start, of course, as soon as I come to cut off certain options, my brain's going to be like, well, but what about like that kind of is really cool or could be really successful or whatnot, because it hurts to cut things off. It hurts to lose things. Like we sort of want to grasp at everything. We never want to let go of anything. And the problem is that if you're holding on to all of it, you can never actually get started, right? You can never use that time and energy to really pour into one thing. And so you have to be okay with that loss. There is going to be some loss and you can be sad about it. You can be disappointed about it. It's not to say that you have to like, it's going to be great. You can be sad that like, okay, in this stage of my life, I can't pursue this. And that sucks. And in another lifetime, maybe I would have. But that is something that I have to kind of come to terms with, that like, I'm not going to be able to pursue this right now. And I have to cut that off in order to be able to pursue this other thing. And that's okay. Your life is going to be a series of these decisions that are going to take you down one path versus another. And it's going to close some doors when you open others. And the sooner you learn how to make those tough decisions, how to make a decision when there is no right answer, when there is no easy answer, but you still have to decide in order to move forward, in order to take a step, the sooner you can actually get started. It's a skill. It is a skill to learn how to make a hard decision when you don't know what the result's going to be and you don't know what the quote unquote right answer is, right? And it's not an easy choice. There is no like no-brainer. If there was a no-brainer, you would have already chose it by now, You would have already been, starting on your career. You kind of come to the fact that there is no no-brainer. There's kind of 50-50 on all these options. 50% good, 50% bad. Some things will work out, some things will not. And I still have to make a decision based on this reality that it's not all and none of them are 100% zero. And when you can kind of come to that and realize okay, I have to make this difficult decision based on what is here, then you can get started. Then you can put the rest of them on the back burner, put them in your journal, think about them, and give yourself ample amount of time to work on the one that you pick, right? I'm going to dedicate a year, 2 years, 3 years to building this business. And I know I can come back to the other stuff later. One of the things we want to make sure we're not doing is constantly I'm going to pick this, but what about that? I'm going to do this, but should I have really done that? We're going to try to stop the constant spinning cycle and get ourselves to a place of this is the decision I made. One of the best decisions I made when I started my podcast was I told myself, come hell or high water, you're going to do it for a year. Even if no one listens, even if you get no followers, even if nothing comes from it, you have to give yourself a year of doing it to really see if it's going to be something or if you're going to like it. You can't know after 2 weeks because in the beginning it's really hard and it feels really uncomfortable and it's really easy to jump to something else because you think that's going to be easier. And then you get into that, and then when that becomes hard, then you jump to something else. And so when you finally do decide, you have to really give yourself the ample amount of time it's going to take to actually get that thing up and running. And then you can reevaluate. And then you can decide actually I thought this was going to be really cool, but I don't like it that much. And so I want to try something else. And so I think that if you really think about these steps, if you realize it's not a problem, it's super normal to be like this, and it's actually a big asset, that I can't do everything all at once, but I have a lot of time to pursue a lot of different things. So I just have to pick the thing that I want to work on next, and that there is no right decision. There's no one decision. There's no one right thing. So I have to do the hard work of cutting other things off and just picking one so I can get started. You can narrow down so much easier the thing you want to work on and actually get towards a career that you want right now, while leaving the option open that you're always allowed to change your mind. You're always allowed to reevaluate and pivot. None of this is final. And the more you give yourself that freedom, the easier it becomes to really get started and not sit in this land of confusion all the time. So I hope that's helpful. If you have a lot of passions, even if you don't, I think a lot of these tips are really helpful in kind of how you think about your career. And if you want help with it, come find me. Come join my membership. That is where I will coach you through this stuff, and I will help you kind of make these decisions. I have a whole course on how to make hard decisions when you don't know the answer. And so you can learn how to rethink all of the things that you've been taught and pursue the career that you want. So like I said, I'll have the link down below, but you can go to lessonsfromaquitter.com/quitterclub, and I will see you next week for another episode.